prayed for peace, but God remembered the wolves. For too long, you tried to be gentle in a world that only respects fire. You swallowed your rage. You knelt when you should have stood. You wore humility like chains, thinking it made you holy. But heaven was never impressed by your silence. It was waiting for your roar. There comes a moment when even God stops whispering mercy and says, "Now, unleash him." That was the day your prayers stopped sounding like requests and started echoing like war drums. That was the day your tears dried up and your eyes turned to iron. That was the day heaven let you off your leash. You see, not every battle is meant to be avoided. Some wars are divine. Some men are not called to pray for peace. They are built to defend it. You were never weak. You were restrained. There's a difference. God doesn't train warriors in temples. He trains them in trenches. He breaks their hearts to widen their spirit. He lets betrayal rip through them so they can learn the language of pain. Because only the broken can understand the cost of saving others. So when they left you bleeding, when the people you die for turned their backs, when you looked at the sky and said, "Why me?" Heaven stayed quiet, not because it forgot you, but because it was forging your war. You prayed for strength, and he gave you storms. You asked for purpose, and he gave you enemies. You begged for peace, and he gave you pressure. Because God doesn't give warriors comfort, he gives them conflict. Every scar on your body is a verse from his script. Every wound a testimony of what he allowed to teach you authority. You didn't survive because you were lucky. You survived because you were chosen. And chosen ones don't live calm lives. They carry divine rage disguised as discipline. Now you move different. Your eyes don't beg, they command. Your silence doesn't mean weakness, it's aim. You used to pray for protection. Now protection prays to walk beside you. The leash was not a punishment, it was a waiting period. Heaven needed to make sure that when you drew your sword, it was justice, not ego, that swung it. Now look at you. Your patience has become power. Your restraint, a weapon. Your faith, a furnace that won't go out. The devil doesn't fear churches. He fears men who've met God in the battlefield. Men who've buried their emotions, their comfort, their dreams, and still rise every morning saying, "I'm not done." You became that, the one heaven trusts with both peace and war. The kind of man who can hold mercy in one hand and vengeance in the other, and know when to use each. The day God let you off your leash, the world thought you changed, but you didn't change. You remembered. You remembered who you were before pain made you polite, before society taught you to fear your own fire, before faith became a ritual instead of a revolution. You remembered what it meant to walk with thunder in your chest and conviction in your spine. You remembered that kindness without strength is slavery. You remembered that sometimes, to protect what's sacred, you must become sacred fury itself. Now look around you. The same ones who laughed when you broke will whisper when you rise. They'll call you dangerous, arrogant, obsessed, but you'll smile because you know what they call dangerous. God calls ready. You're not here to prove anything anymore. You've outgrown the need for applause. You've outlasted their doubt, their pity, their noise. You've entered the season of divine retaliation, not revenge, but restoration. You've been through enough nights to understand the scripture in pain. You've been through enough wars to know what peace really costs. You've been silent long enough to know the sound of your own authority. redeems itself. Because you are no longer the believer who begged for survival. You are the warrior who became the answer to his own prayer. So the next time they see you rise, when they feel your presence before they hear your voice, remember, you didn't become powerful by luck. You became inevitable by pain. And on the day God let you off your leash, heaven smiled. Because hell finally had a problem it couldn't understand. There's a moment heaven stops teaching and starts sending. That's the moment you're living in now. The reckoning. You've learned through storms. You've prayed through silence. And now God doesn't call your name with whispers. He calls you with orders. You're not in training anymore. You're in deployment. He's armed you with memory. Every scar, every betrayal, every night you bled and refused to quit. They weren't setbacks, they were armory. You carry faith like fire, discipline like a blade, and mercy like thunder wrapped in restraint. The world sees a man, but heaven sees a weapon. When heaven arms its warriors, it doesn't give them comfort, it gives them calling. It removes distractions, burns bridges, ends friendships. You think it's loss, but it's pruning. You think it's loneliness, but it's focus. Because when you are armed by God, you don't walk with crowds, you walk with purpose. And purpose has no room for comfort. You'll feel it when the war begins again. It won't be swords or bullets. It'll be doubt, delay, and fatigue. The enemy won't always roar. Sometimes it'll whisper, "You're too tired. You've done enough. Sit down." That's when you remember. You weren't made to rest while evil walks free. You weren't saved to stay silent while lies rule. You were made for this, to bring light through fury and truth through pain. When God arms a warrior, he gives him clarity. That's why the old distractions don't work anymore. You can't laugh at the same lies. You can't sit with people who mock your calling. You can't waste your breath convincing the blind to see what you've seen. You walk different because you've seen heaven's war room. You've felt divine strategy whisper into your chaos. You've realized you're not fighting for yourself anymore. You're fighting for everything that still believes. There's a weight to divine authority that most can't bear. It's not crowns, it's crosses. It's not comfort, it's consequence. Because when heaven arms you, it marks you. You'll carry both grace and gravity in your spirit. You'll feel ancient, even when you're young. You'll talk slow, but your words will split the air like judgment. And every time you doubt your power, remember what it costs to earn it. You've been through wars that erased lesser men. You've stood in silence when your soul screamed for answers. You fought demons no one clapped for you defeating. That's why heaven trusts you now. Because you didn't need a stage to stay faithful. You didn't need applause to stay dangerous. You bled quietly, and that's why you're armed loudly. The reckoning isn't about revenge, it's about balance. The world has tilted toward darkness, and heaven is answering with warriors like you. You don't need to announce it. Your presence already declares it. Every step you take reclaims ground lost to fear. Every time you speak truth, chains start shaking. You are heaven's retaliation for centuries of complacency. You are the correction to weakness disguised as humility. You are the calm that comes before the sacred storm. Now, pay attention to what you feel lately. The anger that burns cleaner, the peace that hits harder, the discipline that feels holy. That's not coincidence. That's your divine activation. You've entered the stage where heaven doesn't protect you from battles. It partners with you in them. You fight, he fuels. You roar, he echoes. You fall, he lifts. You win, he multiplies. The days of crying for rescue are over. Now, you fight as the answer. There's something terrifying about a man who no longer fears breaking. That's what you've become. You've been broken so many times that the cracks became holy. Now, light leaks through them, and even the dark can't stand it. Demons remember your silence. Heaven remembers your tears, and both respect your endurance. You've become the bridge between prayer and power. The soldier who doesn't just believe, he embodies. Listen carefully. This isn't the end of your suffering. It's the end of your confusion. You finally understand why you were buried, why you were stripped, why you were isolated. Because kings are born in crowds, but warriors are built in wilderness. Now the leash is gone. Now the waiting is over. Now your purpose breathes like a blade in your hand. You've become fluent in heaven's language, endurance. You will be misunderstood. You will be envied. You will be targeted, but you will not be moved. Because you are not running on ego. You're running on assignment. The spirit of the warrior doesn't chase approval. It enforces order. When heaven arms you, it doesn't send you to win popularity. It sends you to restore balance. That's why you're still standing. Not because you escaped pain, but because pain never escaped you. It built a home in you, and instead of dying inside it, you lit a torch and made it holy ground. So go now. Walk into the day like judgment wrapped in mercy. Walk like every step is a declaration that weakness has expired. Walk like the last man left standing when everyone else surrendered. Because you are the man heaven armed when peace wasn't enough. You are the echo of every prayer that asked for a warrior and got you instead. The day God let you off your leash wasn't the end of your restraint. It was the beginning of your reign. The war didn't end when the enemy fell. It ended when fear did. You don't realize it at first. The battle goes quiet. The noise dies down. And you stand there in the wreckage, chest burning, heart steady. No cheers, no applause, only silence and smoke. And in that silence, you finally understand. The greatest victory wasn't survival. It was transformation. You are not the man who entered the storm. That version of you was soft, hopeful, uncertain. He prayed for strength. You became it. He prayed for courage. You embodied it. He prayed for safety. You learned to live without it. That's how heaven wins. Not by handing peace to men, but by teaching men to become peace under fire. When the war ended, something inside you didn't. You looked around and realized you don't fear loss anymore. You don't fear betrayal anymore. You don't even fear death. Because you've already met all three and walked away with their crowns in your hands. They broke you, and you thanked them for it. They wounded you, and you built wisdom out of every scar. They left you in the pit, and you learned to pray in it until it became your altar. Fear dies when pain becomes your language. It dies when you stop begging God to remove the storm and start commanding your soul to sail through it. The warrior's calm is terrifying, not because he's cold, but because he's certain. Certain that he's been through worse. Certain that what's inside him can't be killed. You see, the most dangerous man is not the angry one. It's the one who's made peace with pain. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't fold. He doesn't fight for validation. He fights for truth, and the truth is simple. You can't defeat a man who's already been to his own hell and found heaven there. You used to fear losing people until God showed you that destiny doesn't depend on company. You used to fear failure until you failed so hard that humility became a weapon. You used to fear death until you realized the only thing that can die is the flesh, not the flame. Fear isn't destroyed by courage. It's destroyed by faith that's been tested in blood. The kind of faith that says, if God doesn't move the mountain, I'll climb it with broken bones. There's a line every warrior crosses where fear becomes obedience. Not blind obedience, holy obedience. You stop asking God to keep you safe. You start asking Him to keep you aligned. And that's when the world changes. Because when you lose fear, you stop reacting to chaos. You start commanding it. Your breath becomes scripture. Your presence becomes armor. Even your silence becomes strategy. That's when devils hesitate. That's when storms pause mid-strike. That's when the enemy realizes he can't threaten a man who's already accepted the cost of his purpose. You walk different now, slower, heavier, wiser. You don't rush, you calculate, you don't shout. You speak with the weight of heaven behind every syllable. Your peace is not softness, it's precision. Every move is prayer in motion. The old you wanted validation. The new you is validation, because only God could have built this version of you. This living contradiction of mercy and wrath, of patience and fire, of divinity wrapped in human flesh. The war that ended your fear also ended your excuses. You stopped explaining your calling to people who live on permission. You stopped defending your faith to those who worship comfort. You stopped lowering your voice to fit inside rooms you've outgrown. Let them call you extreme. Let them call you obsessed. Let them call you dangerous. Because the truth is, you are. You're dangerous to everything weak inside you, to every lie that ever chained you, to every darkness that ever whispered you were not enough. The day fear died, destiny woke up, and it looked like you. You're not seeking thrones anymore. You're building legacies. You're not chasing crowns. You're sharpening character. You don't need to be loved. You need to be remembered. Because heaven doesn't reward popularity. It crowns endurance. And you endured every loss, every betrayal, every silence. You turned them into scripture that will outlive you. So here you stand. Not the man who begged God for peace, but the warrior who became his answer. Your scars sing louder than choirs. Your discipline preaches louder than sermons. You walk like someone who's seen the other side and came back with command. You don't flinch when storms come. You call them. You don't run from battles. You create them when the world forgets what truth sounds like. You are not a child of fear anymore. You are the soldier heaven sent when hope got tired. This is the ending and the beginning. The end of hesitation. The beginning of holy authority. No more praying for open doors. You are the storm that knocks them down. No more asking for signs. You are the sign. No more waiting for validation. You walk with it carved into your scars. The war ended, but the warrior didn't. Because God didn't free you to rest. He freed you to reign. And now, every time your name is spoken in the dark, even hell remembers. This is the man fear could not bury. This is the warrior God his leash.